Elena was an ordinary-looking woman, or at least that's what the other passengers on the luxurious private jet thought when she stepped aboard. She wore a pair of faded blue jeans, a hoodie that looked like it had seen better days, and sneakers that were scuffed from years of use. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, and she carried nothing more than a small backpack slung over one shoulder. To the other first-class travelers who were dressed in expensive suits, designer dresses, and polished leather shoes, Elena seemed out of place. They glanced at her briefly, then dismissed her as someone who didn't belong. One man, a wealthy businessman named Richard, couldn't help but sneer under his breath. "Who lets people like that into first class?" he muttered to his assistant, who nodded nervously. Richard was used to being surrounded by people just like him, people with money, power, and status. He couldn't understand why someone so plainly dressed would even dare to sit among them. What he didn't know, and what none of the passengers knew, was that Elena owned not only the jet they were flying on but also the entire airline. She preferred to travel incognito, avoiding the attention that came with her wealth. For now, she simply smiled to herself, letting the others make their assumptions. As the flight attendants welcomed passengers on board, they greeted Elena warmly, but without any special treatment. They had no idea who she really was. She took her seat near the window, slipping her headphones on and pulling out a book. The cabin buzzed with quiet conversations as the plane prepared for takeoff. Some passengers chatted about business deals, while others sipped champagne and scrolled through their phones. Everything seemed normal at first. When the plane finally lifted off the runway, something strange began to happen outside. At first it was subtle, a shimmer in the sky, almost like heat waves rising from asphalt on a hot summer day. But then, the clouds started behaving oddly. They swirled and parted in ways that defied natural laws, creating patterns that looked deliberate rather than random. Passengers closest to the windows noticed it first. A young mother pointed it out to her child, saying, "Look, sweetie, isn't that pretty?" But as the phenomenon grew more pronounced, curiosity turned to unease. The shimmering intensified until the entire cabin was bathed in an eerie glow. People leaned closer to their windows, craning their necks to see what was happening. Outside, the sky seemed to split apart, not violently but gently, as if pulled open by invisible hands. And then slowly, something emerged. It wasn't a bird, or a plane, or anything remotely familiar. It was massive. Enormous shapes loomed above the aircraft, casting long shadows that darkened the cabin. Gasps erupted throughout the plane as passengers realized what they were seeing. Above them hung enormous alien ships, star destroyers some might call them. Each vessel was colossal, easily dwarfing skyscrapers and cities below. Their sleek, metallic surfaces gleamed ominously in the sunlight, reflecting light in sharp, blinding flashes. The sheer size of these ships made the private jet feel like a tiny speck in comparison. Panic spread quickly among the passengers. Some clutched their seats tightly, while others fumbled for their phones, desperate to capture footage of the surreal scene unfolding before them. Over the intercom, the pilot's voice crackled with uncertainty. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing, well, something unusual up here. We're working to determine what's going on, but please remain calm." His words did little to reassure anyone. Instead, they heightened the tension. Whispers filled the cabin as people speculated about what was happening. Was this some kind of military exercise? A scientific experiment gone wrong? Or worse, was Earth under attack? Richard, the businessman who had mocked Elena earlier, was visibly shaken. He gripped his phone tightly, trying to call someone on the ground, but the signal kept dropping. "This can't be real," he muttered to himself, his face pale. "We're doomed. We're all doomed." Others around him nodded, their expressions mirroring his fear. Elena, however, remained calm. She leaned closer to the window, her eyes wide with fascination. Whatever was happening, she sensed it was far bigger than anyone could imagine. Unlike the other passengers, Elena wasn't entirely surprised by what she saw. She had encountered extraterrestrial life before, though she never spoke about it publicly. Years ago, during a classified project funded by her company, she had worked closely with scientists studying signals from deep space. Those studies led to discoveries that challenged everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. While most people dismiss such ideas as science fiction, Elena understood that the cosmos held secrets beyond human comprehension. Now, as she stared at the alien ships hovering above Earth, she felt a mix of awe and dread. Something monumental was unfolding, and she suspected she'd have a role to play in it. Despite the chaos around her, Elena stayed composed. When a flight attendant approached her, asking if she needed anything, Elena shook her head politely. "I'm fine, thank you," she said softly. Her calm demeanor stood out amidst the growing hysteria. Nearby, a child began to cry, prompting his parents to try calming him down. Someone else shouted about wanting answers, but no one had any. The uncertainty gnawed at everyone's nerves. As the minutes ticked by, the alien ships continued to hover silently, showing no signs of aggression. That fact alone puzzled Elena. If these beings had the capability to build such advanced technology, why weren't they attacking? Why reveal themselves in such a dramatic fashion without making contact? Questions raced through her mind, but she knew better than to jump to conclusions. First impressions could be deceiving, especially when dealing with unknown entities. Back in the cabin, the mood shifted slightly as people began sharing their thoughts. Some believed the aliens were here to conquer Earth, while others hoped for peaceful intentions. A few even suggested the ships might be illusions, a mass hallucination caused by some unknown phenomenon. Elena listened quietly, piecing together fragments of information. She knew that understanding the situation would require patience and careful observation. Rushing to judgment wouldn't help anyone. Eventually, the initial shock gave way to a fragile sense of curiosity. Passengers started snapping photos and recording videos, eager to document the event. Social media feeds exploded with posts about the mysterious ships, and news outlets scrambled to cover the story. Screens throughout the cabin lit up with breaking updates, showing images of the same alien vessels captured from different parts of the world. It was clear this wasn't an isolated incident, it was happening everywhere. Amidst the commotion, Elena felt a strange sense of anticipation. She had always been fascinated by the possibility of intelligent life beyond Earth, but she never expected to witness it firsthand. Now, as the star destroyers loomed above, she couldn't shake the feeling that her past experiences might prove useful in the days ahead. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: the world would never be the same again. For now, though, Elena sat quietly, watching the skies and waiting. The journey had only just begun, and she knew there was much more to come. As the passengers on the private jet continued to stare out their windows, the enormity of what they were witnessing began to sink in. The alien ships, each one larger than any human-made structure, remained eerily still, suspended in the sky, like silent sentinels. Despite their size and imposing presence, they emitted no sound, no movement, and no visible weapons. It was as if they were waiting for something, or someone, to make the first move. Elena kept her gaze fixed on the nearest ship, her mind racing with possibilities. She had seen enough during her classified work to recognize that these vessels were far beyond anything humanity could create. Their sleek, metallic surfaces shimmered faintly, reflecting light in unpredictable patterns. Some parts of the ships appeared almost translucent, while others seemed impossibly dense. Every detail hinted at technology centuries ahead of Earth's capabilities. But what struck Elena most was how deliberate everything felt. These ships hadn't arrived by accident. They were here for a reason. Meanwhile, the rest of the passengers struggled to process what they were seeing. Richard, the businessman who had earlier mocked Elena, was now visibly shaken. His phone buzzed incessantly with news alerts, but he couldn't focus long enough to read them. "This is insane," he muttered, his voice trembling. "How can this even be real?" He glanced around the cabin, hoping someone would reassure him, but everyone else looked just as terrified. Even the flight attendants, usually calm and collected, seemed unsure of what to do next. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom once again. Ladies and gentlemen, ground control has informed us that similar sightings are being reported worldwide. Authorities are investigating the situation and we will provide updates as soon as possible. Please remain seated and stay calm. His tone was steady, but there was an undercurrent of unease that didn't escape anyone's notice. Passengers exchanged nervous glances, whispering theories about whether this was humanity's end or some kind of elaborate hoax. Elena, however, wasn't buying into the panic. She leaned back in her seat, her expression thoughtful rather than fearful. Over the years, she had learned to approach extraordinary situations with logic rather than emotion. Her past experiences had taught her that fear often clouded judgment, leading people to make rash decisions. Instead of jumping to conclusions, she focused on gathering information. She pulled out her phone and opened a secure app connected to a global network of satellites. Within moments, she accessed live feeds showing the positions of the alien ships across the planet. They weren't random. They formed a precise pattern, encircling Earth in a way that suggested careful planning. While others speculated aloud about invasions and apocalyptic scenarios, Elena noticed something subtle yet significant. The ships weren't just hovering. They were emitting low-frequency vibrations that resonated through the atmosphere. These vibrations were too faint for human ears to detect directly, but sensitive instruments aboard the jet picked them up as faint hums. Scientists monitoring the phenomenon from the ground theorized that these frequencies might serve as a form of communication, or perhaps a warning. Either way, it was clear the aliens were trying to convey something. Back in the cabin, tensions continued to rise. A young woman sitting near Elena clutched her rosary beads, praying softly under her breath. Across the aisle, a middle-aged man argued loudly with his companion about whether the ships were divine messengers or harbingers of doom. The child who had been crying earlier had finally calmed down, lulled into silence by the surreal beauty of the scene outside. For a brief moment, the cabin fell into an uneasy quiet, broken only by the occasional beep of incoming messages. It was then that Elena decided to speak up. Turning to the group nearest her, she said calmly, "Maybe they're not here to harm us." Her words cut through the tension like a knife, drawing startled looks from those around her. Richard frowned, clearly skeptical. "What makes you think that?" he demanded. "They show up out of nowhere, block out the sun, and expect us to believe they're friendly?" Elena met his gaze steadily. "Think about it," she replied. "If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done so already. Their technology is far superior to ours. Instead, they're just watching, waiting. Maybe they're scared too." Her explanation gave some passengers pause. While many remained unconvinced, a few nodded slowly, considering the possibility. One elderly woman seated nearby spoke up. "She's right," she said quietly. "If they wanted war, we'd already be dead. Whatever this is, it's not an attack. Not yet, anyway." Though Elena appreciated the support, she knew the truth was more complicated than either side realized. From her perspective, the situation was less about hostility and more about misunderstanding. Humanity's history was riddled with examples of cultures clashing due to miscommunication. If the aliens truly intended peace, they needed a way to bridge the gap between their species and humans. And based on what Elena had seen in her previous encounters with extraterrestrial life, such bridges required patience, trust, and mutual effort. As the hours passed, news outlets provided increasingly detailed coverage of the event. Reporters interviewed experts, government officials, and eyewitnesses, piecing together fragments of information. Social media exploded with reactions ranging from awe to terror. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire, with some claiming the ships were part of a secret military project, while others insisted they were signs of divine intervention. Amid the chaos, one fact became undeniable: the world was united in its fascination and its fear. For Elena, the unfolding drama held personal significance. She remembered the classified files she had studied years ago, detailing strange signals intercepted from deep space. At the time, scientists debated whether the transmissions were natural phenomena or evidence of intelligent life. Now, staring at the alien ships, Elena wondered if these beings were the same ones responsible for those signals. If so, why had they chosen this moment to reveal themselves? What message were they trying to send? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Just as the sun began to set, bathing the cabin in golden light, the largest alien ship shifted slightly. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with soft, glowing colors. Pass Global gasped collectively as the patterns resolved into symbols, shapes and designs unlike anything human languages used. The symbols moved rhythmically, almost like waves, before fading away. Then, silence. For a moment, no one spoke. The sudden display left everyone stunned, unsure of what to make of it. Was it a greeting, a warning, or simply a test to gauge humanity's reaction? Elena studied the symbols carefully, committing every detail to memory. She suspected they held meaning, if only she could decipher it. Back on Earth, governments scrambled to respond. Fighter jets took to the skies, circling the alien ships cautiously. Military leaders debated whether to engage or retreat, torn between aggression and diplomacy. Meanwhile, scientists worked tirelessly to analyze the data streaming in from observatories and satellites. Every piece of information brought them closer to understanding the visitors, but also raised new questions. In the midst of all this, Elena received a call on her encrypted satellite phone. It was Dr. Marcus Hale, a renowned astrophysicist and one of the few people aware of her involvement in classified extraterrestrial research. "Elena," Marcus said urgently, "we need your help. You're the only one who understands how these things operate." Elena hesitated, weighing her options. She had always preferred staying behind the scenes, letting others take the spotlight. But this was different. This wasn't just about her. It was about the fate of the entire planet. Taking a deep breath, she responded, "I'm on my way." Before leaving the jet, Elena instructed the pilot to land safely despite the anomalies in the sky. As the plane descended, she prepared herself mentally for what lay ahead. She knew the road wouldn't be easy. Bridging the gap between two vastly different civilizations required more than intelligence. It required empathy, courage, and an unshakable belief in the power of cooperation. And though she didn't know exactly what the future held, one thing was certain. Humanity stood at a crossroads. How they responded to this moment would shape the course of history forever. As the jet touched down, Elena glanced out the window one last time. The alien ships still loomed above, their glowing surfaces casting an otherworldly light over the horizon. Somewhere within those massive structures, beings from another world waited watching, wondering if humanity would rise to meet them or falter under the weight of its own fears. The moment Elena stepped off the private jet, she was greeted by a world in turmoil. News helicopters buzzed overhead, their cameras trained on the alien ships that dominated the skies. Military vehicles lined the streets, their presence a stark reminder of humanity's readiness to defend itself, even against forces it barely understood. People gathered in groups, some shouting prayers, others arguing about what should be done next. Fear and confusion rippled through society like a tidal wave, threatening to overwhelm reason. Elena didn't waste time. She climbed into an unmarked black SUV waiting for her on the tarmac, its windows tinted to shield her from prying eyes. Inside, Dr. Marcus Hale sat nervously tapping his fingers against his laptop. A wiry man with glasses perched precariously. On his nose, Marcus had spent decades studying the cosmos, searching for signs of extraterrestrial life. Now faced with undeniable proof, he looked more anxious than triumphant. "Thank God you're here," Marcus said as Elena settled into the seat beside him. "Things are escalating fast. Governments are scrambling, militaries are mobilizing, and civilians are panicking. If we don't figure out how to communicate with them soon, this could end badly. For everyone." Elena nodded grimly. She had seen enough during her years of classified work to know that fear often led to rash decisions. Humanity's instinctive reaction to the unknown was either aggression or retreat. neither of which would help in this situation. What they needed now was calm, rational thinking, and someone willing to step forward as a bridge between species. The SUV sped through the city, weaving past checkpoints manned by armed soldiers. On every street corner, giant screens displayed live footage of the alien ships, accompanied by endless commentary from experts and conspiracy theorists alike. Some claimed the aliens were here to harvest Earth's resources. Others insisted they were messengers sent by a higher power. The cacophony of opinions only added to the chaos. When they arrived at a secure underground facility, Elena felt a sense of déjà vu. It was the same place where she had worked on decoding signals from deep space years ago. Back then, the project had been shrouded in secrecy, known only to a handful of scientists and government officials. Today, however, the stakes were much higher. Instead of abstract data points, they were dealing with living, breathing beings whose intentions remained unclear. Inside the facility, a team of scientists and engineers huddled around monitors, their faces illuminated by the glow of screens displaying real-time analysis of the alien ships. Data streamed in from satellites, radar systems, and ground-based observatories, painting a picture of technology far beyond human comprehension. The ships emitted low-frequency vibrations that resonated across continents, creating patterns that hinted at purposeful design. Scientists debated whether these frequencies were attempts at communication or something else entirely. Marcus led Elena to a conference room where a holographic projection of one of the alien ships hovered above a circular table. Surrounding it were images of the symbols the ship had displayed earlier, glowing, pulsating shapes that seemed to defy logic. Elena studied them carefully, her mind racing as she tried to piece together their meaning. "These symbols aren't random," Marcus explained. "We've run simulations and cross-referenced them with linguistic databases, but nothing matches. They might represent concepts rather than words, ideas we can't fully grasp yet." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. If their level of technology is centuries ahead of ours, their way of thinking might be too. We need to approach this not just as scientists, but as diplomats." Her words struck a chord with the team. For all their expertise, they realized they were dealing with something far greater than equations and algorithms. This wasn't just a scientific puzzle, it was a cultural challenge. Bridging the gap between two civilizations required understanding, patience, and creativity. As the hours passed, Elena worked tirelessly alongside the team, brainstorming ways to establish contact. Drawing on her previous experiences, she suggested using visual signals combined with mathematical sequences, a universal language that transcended barriers. She also proposed sending drones equipped with recording devices to capture any responses from the alien ships. Every idea was met with cautious optimism, though no one dared to hope for success too soon. Meanwhile, outside the facility, humanity's response grew increasingly volatile. Fighter jets circled the alien ships, attempting to provoke a reaction. Missiles were launched only to fizzle out harmlessly against invisible shields surrounding the vessels. Each failed attempt fueled frustration and paranoia, pushing leaders closer to declaring war. Social media erupted with calls for action, with hashtags like "Warn Defend Earth" and "Warn Alien Invasion" trending worldwide. Back at the facility, Elena received updates from intelligence agencies monitoring global reactions. Reports poured in of riots breaking out in major cities, protests demanding answers, and conspiracy theories spreading unchecked. The longer the situation dragged on without resolution, the more unstable the world became. Elena knew they were running out of time. "We have to act quickly," she told Marcus. "If humans keep escalating, the aliens might see us as a threat. And if that happens..." She trailed off, unwilling to voice the worst-case scenario. But Marcus understood. He nodded grimly, knowing that failure wasn't an option. Finally, after days of intense effort, the team made a breakthrough. Using advanced translation algorithms developed during earlier research projects, they managed to decode part of the alien symbols. The message was simple but profound. "We seek refuge." The revelation stunned everyone. Far from being invaders, The aliens were refugees fleeing their dying homeworld. Their arrival wasn't an act of aggression, it was a desperate plea for survival. Armed with this knowledge, Elena knew they had to share it with the world. But doing so wouldn't be easy. She contacted key government officials, urging them to halt military operations and allow peaceful negotiations to proceed. At first, resistance was fierce. Politicians and generals argued that trusting the aliens was too risky, citing humanity's history of betrayal and conflict. But Elena persisted, presenting evidence and appealing to their sense of morality. Slowly, reluctantly, they agreed to stand down, at least temporarily. With tensions easing slightly, Elena prepared to make direct contact with the aliens. Using a specially designed communication device, she transmitted a message in return. "We hear you. Let us talk." The transmission included visual representations of Earth's geography, along with mathematical constants meant to convey intelligence and goodwill. For what felt like an eternity, there was no response. The team waited anxiously, unsure if their efforts had been successful. Then finally, the largest alien ship shifted again. Its surface shimmered, forming new symbols that pulsed rhythmically before fading away. Through the translation algorithm, the message came through loud and clear. "We are afraid." Those 3 words sent chills down everyone's spines. The aliens weren't conquerors. They were terrified survivors, just like humanity would be in their position. Realizing this changed everything. Suddenly, the task ahead seemed less daunting and more urgent. These beings weren't enemies. They were potential allies, provided humanity chose to extend a hand instead of a weapon. Elena turned to the team, her expression resolute. "This is our chance," she said firmly. "We can't let fear dictate our actions. If we do this right, we won't just save ourselves. We'll open the door to a future none of us ever dreamed possible." As preparations began for formal negotiations, Elena reflected on how far they'd come in such a short time. From panic and hostility to understanding and cooperation, humanity had taken its first tentative steps toward becoming something greater than itself. But the journey was far from over. Ahead lay challenges that would test the limits of courage, compassion, and ingenuity, and Elena knew she would need every ounce of strength to guide them through. Above ground, the alien ship still loomed, silent and watchful. Somewhere within those metallic walls, beings from another world waited, holding their breaths as they wondered whether humanity would rise to meet them or falter under the weight of its own fears. The negotiations began in a high-security facility buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. It was a place designed to withstand natural disasters, nuclear attacks, and even alien invasions, though no one had ever imagined it would be used for this purpose. Elena stood at the center of the room, surrounded by monitors displaying real-time data from the alien ships. Beside her was Dr. Marcus Hale, his fingers flying across a keyboard as he fine-tuned the translation algorithms that would allow humanity to communicate with the Veirathi, the name the aliens had given themselves. The atmosphere in the room was tense but focused. Scientists, linguists, military advisors, and government officials worked side by side, united by a shared goal: to prevent war and establish peace. For the first time in history, humanity faced a challenge that transcended borders, politics, and ideologies. This wasn't just about saving Earth. It was about proving that humans were capable of rising above their fears and working together. Elena took a deep breath before stepping up to the microphone connected to the communication device. Her voice carried both authority and warmth as she addressed the Veirathi. "We understand you are seeking refuge," she said slowly, ensuring every word was translated accurately. "We want to help, but we need to know more about your intentions and how we can coexist peacefully." For several agonizing minutes, there was silence. Then, the largest alien ship emitted a series of glowing symbols, which the algorithm quickly decoded into a response. "Our planet is dying. We fled to survive. Your weapons frighten us." The message sent ripples through the team. These beings weren't invaders. They were survivors, fleeing a catastrophe much like what humanity feared might one day happen to Earth. Their fear of human aggression made sense now. They had assumed humanity's militarized response meant hostility. Miscommunication had nearly led to disaster. Elena leaned closer to the microphone, her tone calm but firm. "We apologize for our actions. We misunderstood your presence. If you mean us no harm, then neither will we harm you. Can you tell us more about your needs?" The reply came after another long pause. "We require resources to sustain life. Our technology can share knowledge in return." This revelation sparked excitement among the scientists. The possibility of gaining advanced alien technology was tantalizing, but Elena reminded everyone to focus on building trust first. She responded carefully, asking follow-up questions to clarify what kind of resources the Veirathi needed and how they planned to integrate with human society. As the dialogue continued, Elena found herself growing increasingly impressed by the Veirathi's patience and willingness to cooperate. They communicated cautiously, choosing their words, or rather their symbols, with care. Through holographic projections transmitted via the communication device, Elena saw glimpses of their homeworld: barren landscapes, crumbling cities, and skies choked with ash. It was a haunting reminder of what could happen if humanity failed to address its own environmental crises. Back on the surface, news of the negotiations spread rapidly. Live broadcasts showed Elena speaking directly with the aliens, her calm demeanor inspiring confidence in millions of viewers. People watched in awe as translations of the Veirathi messages appeared on screen, accompanied by visualizations of their dying planet. Public opinion began to shift dramatically. Where once there had been fear and panic, hope now emerged. Social media lit up with hashtags like Marn, Peace with Veirathi, and the New Allies, reflecting a growing desire for cooperation over conflict. Richard, the businessman who had mocked Elena on the flight, sat glued to his television screen, his earlier arrogance replaced by shame. He realized with dawning clarity that the woman he had dismissed as insignificant was single-handedly saving the world. "She's incredible," he muttered to himself, shaking his head in disbelief. His assistant nodded silently, equally stunned by Elena's poise under pressure. Inside the facility, the negotiation process was painstakingly slow. Each exchange required careful interpretation, and misunderstandings were inevitable. At one point, the Veirathi expressed concern about humanity's tendency toward violence, citing historical examples of wars and colonization. Elena acknowledged these flaws openly, explaining that while humans were capable of great harm, they were also capable of compassion and growth. "We're not perfect," she admitted, "but we're learning. Working with you gives us a chance to become better, not just for ourselves, but for future generations." Her honesty seemed to resonate with the Veirathi. Over time, their interactions grew less formal and more collaborative. They shared insights into their culture, revealing a society deeply rooted in harmony and collective well-being. In return, Elena introduced them to human art, music, and philosophy, highlighting the diversity and creativity that defined Earth's civilizations. One breakthrough moment came when the Veirathi offered to demonstrate their technology. Through the communication device, they transmitted blueprints for devices capable of producing clean energy using methods far superior to anything humans had developed. The implications were staggering: unlimited power without pollution or resource depletion. Scientists in the facility erupted in cheers, realizing the potential to solve some of Earth's most pressing problems. However, Elena knew that implementing such technology wouldn't be easy. Humanity's infrastructure wasn't equipped to handle such advancements overnight. Moreover, introducing alien tech too quickly could destabilize economies and create new forms of inequality. She stressed the importance of gradual integration, urging caution even as excitement mounted. Meanwhile, governments around the world debated how to proceed. Some leaders argued for strict regulations to ensure the Veirathi's presence didn't disrupt existing power structures. Others advocated for open collaboration, believing that humanity's survival depended on embracing change. Elena played a crucial role in mediating these discussions, reminding everyone that unity, not division, was key to moving forward. By the end of the week, significant progress had been made. The Veirathi agreed to provide humanitarian aid in the form of advanced medical treatments and sustainable farming techniques. In return, humanity promised to allocate certain regions of Earth as safe zones for the Veirathi to rebuild their population. Both sides recognized that compromise would be necessary, but the foundation for peace had been laid. As the final session drew to a close, Elena addressed the Veirathi one last time. "Thank you for trusting us," she said sincerely. "We may come from different worlds, but we share the same hopes and dreams. Together we can build a future worth fighting for." The Veirathi responded with a symbol that translated simply as gratitude. It was a small gesture yet profoundly meaningful. For the first time since their arrival, the alien ships began to shift positions, retreating slightly from Earth's orbit. The message was clear. They believed humanity could be trusted. Outside the facility, celebrations erupted spontaneously. Crowds gathered in city squares, cheering and chanting slogans of unity. Fireworks lit up the night sky, mirroring the glow of the alien ships overhead. News anchors declared it a historic moment, comparing it to humanity's first steps on the moon. Social media overflowed with messages of gratitude directed at Elena, who had become an international hero overnight. But Elena remained humble, refusing to take full credit for the success. "This isn't my victory," she told reporters during a brief press conference. "It belongs to all of us, to every scientist, diplomat, and ordinary person who chose hope over fear. Today, we proved that humanity is capable of greatness." As she stepped away from the cameras, Elena allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Integrating two vastly different civilizations would require constant effort and vigilance. But for the first time in a long time, she felt optimistic about the future. Humanity had stared into the abyss and chosen to reach out instead of recoil, and in doing so, it had taken its first step toward becoming something greater than itself. Above ground, the alien ships still hovered, their metallic surfaces shimmering faintly in the sunlight, but now they no longer inspired fear. Instead, they symbolized hope, a promise of what could be achieved when two worlds came together in understanding and respect. Somewhere within those massive vessels, the Veirathi waited, ready to embark on a new chapter alongside their human allies, and Elena knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The days following the successful negotiations marked the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. The presence of the Veirathi was no longer seen as a threat, but as an opportunity, a chance to redefine what it meant to be human in a universe far larger and more interconnected than anyone had imagined. Elena, who had become the face of this unprecedented collaboration, found herself at the center of a global movement. Her quiet determination and unwavering belief in peace inspired millions, proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, compassion could triumph over fear. As promised, the Veirathi began sharing their knowledge with humanity. Their advanced technology revolutionized nearly every aspect of life on Earth. Clean energy systems powered cities without harming the environment, ending centuries of reliance on fossil fuels. Medical breakthroughs cured diseases once thought incurable, extending lifespans and improving quality of life. Agricultural innovations ensured food security for the growing population, while water purification techniques brought fresh drinking water to regions plagued by drought. The impact was immediate and profound, transforming societies in ways that seemed almost miraculous. But the changes weren't limited to technology alone. Humanity's relationship with itself also began to shift. For decades, nations had been divided by borders, ideologies, and conflicts. Now, faced with the reality of extraterrestrial life, those divisions started to fade. People realized they were part of something much bigger, a shared destiny among stars. International cooperation reached levels never before seen. As governments worked together to integrate Veirathi solutions into global systems, even long-standing rivalries softened, replaced by a sense of unity born out of necessity and hope. Elena played a pivotal role in overseeing this transition. She traveled extensively, meeting with world leaders, scientists, and ordinary citizens to ensure the partnership remained strong. Her calm demeanor and ability to bridge gaps between cultures earned her respect not just from humans but also from the Vairathi themselves. They regarded her as a trusted ally, someone who truly understood their plight and shared their vision for a better future. One of the most remarkable developments came when the Vairathi revealed their plans to establish permanent settlements on Earth. These areas, designated as sanctuaries, were carefully chosen based on environmental sustainability and minimal disruption to existing ecosystems. The sanctuaries served as homes for the Vairathi refugees, providing them with space to rebuild their communities while fostering interaction with humans. Cities adapted to accommodate both species, creating vibrant multicultural hubs where ideas, traditions, and innovations flowed freely. At first, integrating two vastly different civilizations wasn't without challenges. Misunderstandings arose due to cultural differences, and some segments of society resisted change, fearing loss of identity or autonomy. However, Elena emphasized the importance of mutual respect and patience. She encouraged open dialogue, organizing forums where humans and Vairathi could share their perspectives and learn from each other. Over time, these efforts paid off, leading to friendships and collaborations that transcended species boundaries. Back home, Elena's personal life began to reflect the changes happening globally. The private jet she owned became a symbol of her newfound fame, though she still preferred flying incognito whenever possible. On one such flight months after the initial encounter, she found herself seated near the same businessman, Richard, who had once ridiculed her. He recognized her immediately and approached hesitantly, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine remorse. "I owe you an apology," Richard said, his voice tinged with embarrassment. "I judged you unfairly that day on the plane. I had no idea who you really were, or how much you've done for all of us." Elena smiled warmly, brushing off his apology. "No harm done," she replied. "But next time, maybe don't judge a book by its cover." Her words carried a deeper meaning, resonating not just with Richard but with everyone touched by the events of the past months. Humanity had learned a valuable lesson. Appearances could be deceiving, and true strength often lay beneath the surface. By embracing humility and curiosity, people had discovered allies in beings they once feared. Public opinion continued to evolve as stories of human Vairathi cooperation spread. Documentaries showcased joint projects tackling climate change, poverty, and inequality. Artists created work celebrating the fusion of two cultures, blending alien aesthetics with human creativity. Schools introduced curricula teaching students about the Vairathi, emphasizing the importance of coexistence and empathy. Slowly but surely, Earth transformed into a planet defined not by division, but by harmony. For Elena, the journey was bittersweet. While she took pride in what humanity had achieved, she knew the work was far from over. Maintaining peace required constant effort, and there would always be those who resisted progress. Yet, she remained hopeful. Every step forward proved that humanity was capable of growth, resilience, and kindness, and the Vairathi too were learning from their human counterparts, adopting aspects of Earth's culture and adapting to their new home. One evening, Elena stood outside her house gazing up at the sky. The alien ships still lingered above, their glowing surfaces casting soft light across the horizon. But now, instead of inspiring fear, they filled her with awe. Somewhere within those massive vessels, beings from another world lived side by side with humans, united by a shared dream of survival and prosperity. It was a sight she never tired of seeing. As she reflected on everything that had transpired, Elena felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the outcome but for the process itself. Humanity hadn't risen to meet the challenge because of its technology or resources. It had succeeded because of its capacity for understanding and connection. In facing the unknown, people had discovered strengths they didn't know they possessed, and in doing so, they had forged a path toward a brighter future. Above, The stars twinkled faintly against the darkened sky. Elena smiled to herself, knowing that Earth was no longer alone in the cosmos. The road ahead would undoubtedly bring new challenges, but she was confident that humanity, and its new allies, would rise to meet them. Together they had proven that even in the vastness of space, there was room for hope, courage, and love, and, as the wind whispered through the trees carrying with it the promise of endless possibilities, Elena turned back toward her house, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring.